get someone who hasn't walked in 5, 10, 20 years and put them in this and start working with them. And even if you're trying to work with core strengthening, when you're initially not even able to take a step, it's allowing that person to get in and start making those connections with the brain and the muscles. And oftentimes I'll see people that haven't walked in many years, and they'll immediately slump forward because those muscles haven't been used. That's a positive thing, that you're finally making that connection and starting that process. And what we see is people within a matter of weeks will start responding, and you'll start seeing them start to strengthen and get a stronger core. And then the next thing you know, they're starting to work on taking steps. The nice thing about the system is it challenges a person whatever degree they need to be challenged. So if I'm walking forward or backward, I stay centered right in the frame, but I can sit and I can rest comfortably. It's padded. So if I need to catch my breath, I can rest for whatever length of time. And instead of having a therapist or a caregiver or someone in the home standing over someone, all of a sudden I don't know who looks more relieved, the person that's in it or the person that's taking care of them. But it's just a wonderful way to build confidence and restore a person's ability to have that extra dimension to their life to be able to walk. And, you don't realize how important walking is until you can't do it. And so what it's allowing is you can challenge the person at whatever level you need to work with them. And the progress is beyond words. We've had family members say that's been one of the best things that's happened to their family members since their injury, because it's given them that part of their life back to where they can go. They can take this outdoors. They can go into shopping malls in the wintertime. They can go, walk on the sidewalks. Like the person I described that was walking around the building, it was a nice 70-degree day, probably kind of like today is going to be. And to be able to be out in the sun, be able to do things, it's just an environmental enrichment that, to offer the person that kind of dimension. As simplistic as it looks, it's very functional. And the kind of outcomes you're trying to accomplish, it's allowing you to position a person where you're getting the weight in the feet. And that's what makes it different, because you're being positioned in the frame where you're challenging the person. They're not hanging or being supported from anything. They're doing their own work. And it's that reinforcement of pattern that is very powerful. If you can get that repetition, how often are you limited in your therapy environment where you have a limited amount of time to work with someone?
Oh, that's great. So you also can adjust that for various levels of weight bearing?
Yes. So you can challenge them at the level they need to be challenged. If you wanted to raise it up higher, you're going to, the moment arm and the center of gravity will change. But it will, the nice thing is I'm glad you mentioned it, there's posts in the front and there's a weight activated system. So if someone starts to fall, it actually has a spring mechanism that will lock the brakes into place. So whatever direction I go, it's not going to run away from the person either. It has manual control. Also, if you want to lock it in place completely with the wheels themselves, you can do that. So if you want to do stationary work with core strengthening and things like that. Or it also has an inline capability. So if you wanted to just diagonally press the two wheels in the front and the back, it'll lock it straight. So initially, if you have someone with a brain injury and they're going side to side, now you have it straight for them for their early therapy sessions until they get stronger, and then challenge them some more. But you can adjust the straps to actually counterbalance their lean. So if I pull down on the strap, I can loosen one in the front, and then if somebody's leaning a lot in one direction, counterbalance. And the same with if you want to do resistive types of things, there are cuffs that have little plastic rings. So if I want to use thoroughband tubing or something and actually work on a leg, I can do that as well. So you can get as creative as you want as a therapist, but your hands are free to work on someone and not have to concentrate on biting the frame. And if you want to disengage the weight, you simply turn the person around and have them face the open side, and then that would disengage the brake, and then you could just step on the front, which becomes the back, and that would allow you to, if someone's a real leaner in their initial. And actually, it's a good benefit to actually have the braking system where they're facing the front. If you're trying to work with someone and they're leaning, that's not something you really want them to do anyway. So it reminds somebody very quickly, if they're leaning and it's not going forward, maybe their posture needs some work. So that's primarily.
Well, I was just thinking about the logistics of getting somebody.
Oh, that's a good, thank you. The logistics are primarily, you would want to have someone in a seated position, on, like at a bed or a mat table. So you do a sit to stand. And it sounds more complicated than it is. We have had people that are with very severe disabilities that we can get people in and out of. But it's a process that is well worth the investment because the outcomes are so strong. And we've had quads in here that are C5s.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I've actually seen a quadriplegic patient on one of those.
Yep, and there's 2 or 3 that we have that are from the Detroit Medical Center that are actually using e-stim in these, and they're actually going right down the track. And these are people that hadn't been vertical.
Yeah, I've seen some very athletic young male. I actually witnessed a very athletic young male who basically became a quadriplegic, had absolutely no feeling or use of his legs, and after a short-term use of that, I think it was in Colorado somewhere, they sent him to a specialty clinic. He was actually getting some feeling back into his lower limbs.
It's so powerful, what starts happening, the changes in the body when you start getting them up and getting them on their feet. One of the first people, you just reminded me, was one of the first people that ever had stem cell. His name's Bob Smith. He's 6'7", and he was one of the first to test the stability aspect you were talking about, having someone 6'7" that had stem cell that was a quadriplegic, and they were putting him in this, and he started getting all the feeling and everything back in his body just from being in this.
And I would think from the perspective of just being a patient, something like that is invaluable.
Absolutely. The functioning and the systems that start to wake up when you start doing these things, it's really powerful.